today. We're joined today for the 11th. Actually, today's the 11th. Be You Powerfully. Whoop whoop. So we're on to the next 10th of this session. Today we're joined with our sister Lucia. She's an entrepreneur, she's a mother, she's a badass, she's a great young woman, really transforming the field of entrepreneurship for young women, for African women, and really building up on looking at how can we provide sustainable energy. And she's doing an amazing work, not only in Africa, but globally, looking at how can we change the narrative around young women who are entrepreneurs on the global scene. She talked at the UN General Assembly in New York in 2017, if I don't have it wrong. She's also great contributors to several news outlets, including CNBC and BBC. And we're also joined by our sister Jackie, who we're going to call our sister skipper today, who's going to to help mediate the conversation. So this is just a quick introduction, and now we're going to leave the floor to Lucia and Jackie. We're going to lead us on what it is to be you powerfully in entrepreneurship and in sustainable energy. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Verlaine. Honestly, thank you so much for even inviting me. I get really nervous. And it's funny because I do talk sometimes, but I'm by no means a speaker. I get totally nervous, but because Verlaine asked, I can't say no to Verlaine ever. So it's funny about being you powerfully. It's this is I feel like this is very me. It can be hard to not be what you think someone expects you to be. And this is my friend Jackie. We live in the same building. And she's so dope. And I came up to her apartment yesterday and I was like, oh, I have this talk tomorrow. What am I going to do? And I was freaking out. What am I going to wear? Where am I going to do it? And then we just got into a conversation. I was like, this would be really cool to do this for the talk.
Like how we have most of our conversations.
Yeah, because most of the time, anyone who is friends with me, I probably irritate them because I make everyone into a sounding board where I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And I don't know, I find sometimes you can be so close to something, you can't really see it clearly. Right. So I love having a conversation. And for me, you guys just throw on your mic whenever you want and interrupt me that. I actually would love that. Because I feel like I can learn more from everybody else than me speaking. It's like being a founder, it's a funny thing because you do have some founders who are subject matter experts. I'm not one of them. So I can't sit and give everyone a lecture on climate or sustainability, but I can share some of my entrepreneurship journey, which has been pretty haphazard. And I thought even though I wanted to bring Jackie in, she's just the most chic person I know. I'll let you introduce yourself, but kind of a funny story. Verlaine, I love the whole premise for Zahara's dream, where it's a woman needs 4 things: opportunity, which a lot of times you have to kind of make yourself, and confidence, a role model, and a power jacket. So a couple of years ago, it actually wasn't that far after when I spoke at the UN, I got invited to speak in London. It was called Planet Earth Institute. I think it's now defunct. And I thought it was a scam. I didn't know if it was real, but I'm like, you know what, this opportunity, I looked at the speakers and they all looked so impressive. And I'm like, well, I want to be up there. So I went, and I remember before going, I showed Jackie what I was going to wear. And I had these pleather leggings, the most ridiculous outfits, pleather leggings, this off the shoulder shirt. And Jackie's like, I don't think that's it. So it's when you talk about collecting 100,000 suit jackets, it's we all need that, none of us are born knowing what to wear or what to say. We all need to lean on a sister and get some help and get some advice. And thankfully, Jackie let me a very chic jumpsuit. Yes. And it's just funny when I think about that trip as well. It was in London and I had no one to watch my daughter who's inside. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring her. But they weren't paying for anything. So I had a friend who works at an airline, so I flew standby. It was the most struggly trip, but it was so, it just was so good in the end. I didn't even have anyone to watch my daughter, so she came to the conference. And you could imagine, she sat there for 3 hours. And if anything, that's my biggest thing I'd love to share about entrepreneurship. It's like you just go with it. You will never be ready. You'll never feel ready. Even now, I don't feel ready for this. I feel like my hair is too big. But you just have to kind of go with it. And for what I do in particular, we build infrastructure in Uganda. And I remember when I started the company, so my parents died when I was a kid, and my late father left us some land. And I wanted to do something, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll just lease the land to a developer. I feel like I've even skipped like 5 different ideations, but I was going to enter a land lease, and I'm like, well, if I do that, I'm out of the game. Like, what if I develop the land myself? And it was truly just that naive of a thought. Everything thereafter, including today, is just like, well, maybe I can do this, maybe. And tons and tons and tons of embarrassment and errors later, you find yourself kind of on a journey. And I picked energy not because I studied it. I didn't study energy, so I literally have to learn as I go. But I just thought, like, it's like the precursor to all development. Nothing else will work if we don't have electricity. Like, right now, I'm in Toronto. I'm a dual citizen of Uganda and Toronto. I came to Canada as a refugee when I was a kid. And, like, remember we had that blackout? A couple of years ago, Christmas, the power went out. And it's, like, catastrophe. Your fridge, all of your things are rotting. And then, you just think that, like, back home, that's an everyday occurrence. And here it was so disruptive that it just didn't make sense to me to do anything else like back home in Uganda, because once that power goes out, what are you going to do? And the whole kind of journey has been, I think, really to honor my parents who passed away and just do something for them. That's why I named it Bakulu Power. My full name is Bakulumpagi-Wamala, but growing up in Canada, that is just like way too much of a name. So we used to go by, and then my mom just switched it to Wamala. But making the company, I thought, no, I'm going to go back to like my real last name, who I am, and it kind of helps me keep going when I feel like everything is like a mess. Because I'm like, no, it's not for me. Like, it's for my people back home, and it's for really my parents. And I think just one thing I'd love to talk about, I mean, you guys, please ask any questions you want. I kind of feel like I'm rambling.
How would you explain how what you do impacts the day-to-day lives to those in Uganda?
Well, I mean, I'd have to kind of say, I mean, it impacts in every way. Like, it's just, I don't know where everybody is. I so wish I could see all your faces. I don't know, is there a way where I can see? Berlin, I see your face. I feel like I'm like an old woman. I don't know why. I don't want to mess it up, but I wish I could see everyone else's faces, because, like, I don't know where everybody is in the world, but it's like, when the power goes out, what can you do? You can't go to work. Your business can't operate. It's just, there's so many issues. And one thing about sustainability, actually, is that, I know I'm still talking about sustainable energy, but I thought it'd be a bit more interesting. We were talking yesterday about just talking about sustainability.
And what the word even means to people. Like, it sounds simple, but I think it means something to each person you ask.
Yeah, and it means something. I don't know if anyone else, in the conversation is an entrepreneur or we all have dreams or visions of things we want to do. And sustainability applies to everybody, even if you're not an entrepreneur. It's like, I think one thing that COVID has shown all of us is just how delicately woven, like, the social fabric is for all of us. Like, for example, like, I'm a mother. I don't know if anyone else is a mother. And I'm used to sometimes bringing my daughter with me if I'm speaking, and I'm used to that. But her being home for 5 months is something I'm not used to. And, it's something that is not sustainable. I can't really work. So I think a lot of entrepreneurship is you see an issue and you just try and fix it. So I've been reading a lot about micro schools where parents gather and they all chip in and they hire like tutors, or even now they're poaching teachers. I guess you call them the governists, like the old fashioned word. And they're saying, we're going to pay this teacher to look after our kids during the day. I can work, teacher gets money, the kids are safe. It's a new model. and that is sustainable. So it's like for us, the model happens to be, you know, we want to provide electricity for people, but people need to be able to pay for it. So we actually invest in the key economies, which is called that model is called the productive use of energy model. So our developments right now are on islands, so we're investing in ice plants. So it's pretty simple. The idea is that, you know, the fishermen can have cold store, like called a cold chain, but yeah, it's called a cold chain because it's like, you know, you think about it, even about like grocery stores, like there's these, you go to the grocery store and you'll see the apples and you wonder if they're frozen, you know, like how do they preserve this? But when there's no electricity back home, they can't even make ice, they can't refrigerate. So that cold storage is really a big problem. And when you don't have it, you end up overfishing. You can't preserve your fish, you can't sell in large quantities, you can't export, like it has all these other trickle down effects, much like we're seeing with COVID, where when things aren't open, your kid is at home. And so it's like sustainable is something that has to sustain, it has to be able to carry on. And in our work in mini grids, it's really, because if I'm sweaty, please forgive me. It's really hot, but I love the sun. But I love it because summer is like 5 minutes here. It's gonna be awful and cold soon. But a lot of mini grids and back home are done purely on grant. And grants are great. If anyone knows of a grant, I'd like one. But when you do that, you can overlook a lot of things because you're not so much worried about paying back debt or you're not worried about paying down a debt. So you can create a model that's not actually sustainable. It can start, but it can't continue on its own. Whereas our mini grid can continue because people have jobs, and as people make money, they want more of the luxuries.
Compound, I guess.
Yeah, and
they can flourish into something.
Yeah, and everybody wants to have a microwave if they choose, or to have a washer and a dryer. This consumes electricity, so in the long haul, it's good for me, and it helps people raise their standard of living. And it's funny because, like, I would never say I'm like an environmentalist per se.
What does that word mean to you?
I mean, because I feel like the word, like when you speak of environmentalist, it can be, I find sometimes it's really like a very narrow way of thinking. It's like, I'm preserving the bees, I'm preserving, but it's a whole system. Okay. You know, it's like in working in Uganda, it's really, 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 the regulation is like, it's really tough there to develop. I've learned it's the most toughest place in Africa. Yeah. And you have to do a huge environmental impact assessment. It's literally like over a 300-page document for each site. I mean, you have to consider all sorts of things: the flora, the fauna, the water. How will you dispose of? How will you dispose of the batteries? Like, there's so many things to think of, and you realize it's interesting because even the environmental impact assessment involves like child labor. How are you going to make sure you're not hiring children? And it's not like here in like Canada where you have a social security. Well, we have a social identity number. Yeah. In the U.S., you guys call them social security, where like the day you're born, you know, the government stamps the number, they know what you're doing. Yeah. Back home, that doesn't happen. So you have to have a policy of how you're going to
like factor that in to ensure that's not, make sure that's not part of your
business model. How are you going to make sure? And that, like, it's so complicated. So that's why I'm like, what we do, we look at the whole system. It's like, for example, one of the sites we're developing, in our land lease agreement to get land from the district, we give certain points of like the sale of water back to the district. And we decided to give the district a new school because this one particular island, the bedrock, is too tough to do ground-mounted solar. And this school, like, I mean, it literally can make you cry if you see what the school looks like now. So we decided, okay, we're going to give them a school in exchange for land, and we'll house the solar panels on top of the school. Like, for anyone who wants, like, I have a 3D video, it's super slick, I'll send it to you. And that is the generation site for the mini grid, because in the mini grid, sorry if I'm skipping all over the place, But in a mini grid, we generate, distribute, and sell electricity for a select area. Here, like in the Western world, you tend to have like, well, even back home, you have like the national grid, and if anyone is here in Uganda, you know, UBMA. But for us, we do all of it in one. So it's pretty complicated. Normally there's like 4 different companies. But this school now, the roof is the generation site for this grid. And the idea is, you know, I care about jobs more than like being an environmentalist. I care about the environment, obviously, but I care about jobs and like people's dignity. And I want to hire people from Uganda, like everyone who works in rural, like we, I mean, as I'm in Toronto, so we're local, but everybody in the team is local, lives in Uganda. And to be able to get a bigger pool of people to hire, we need schools. So it's like a systems approach to everything. Of course, there's the flip side where you don't want to come in, and you hear my accent, so I'm a Muzungu back home. You don't want to come in and be like, yeah, I own the whole town. So that's a funny line. So that's where we doing things like giving the school, putting the panels on the school. It's like to show the community, like, you know, like we're working together. You know, and because we have problems with people stealing panels in Uganda, but it's like just want people to have a sense of like ownership. It's not me coming in and telling you what to do. I know what's best for you. Because in fact, it's like I'm Ugandan, yes, but I was raised in Canada, so I'm really. So you're like toggling back and forth between 2 cultures. Yeah, and it's like a lot of unlearning. Because in the beginning, I was always like, well, in Canada, but in Canada, you know, and the other everyone who works in it would be like, this is in Canada. And it's funny because we can, as Africans, like we can be like, oh, like no white saviors, or you know, there's that kind of idea of these people coming from the West and they're expats and they have all these ideas, and you forget like it can be you too. You know, like we all have our own in that culture, and you learn that those values. Like we all have these biases, and I'd say, kind of just to sum up my tangent, I feel like I've gone on. It's that like in entrepreneurship, you really have to listen like to your customers, you have to listen to your team, you have to listen, oh my god, you should listen to your accountants and your lawyers, because I have a lot of accounting drama that I could share with anyone who's feeling bad about that. Made a lot of mistakes, but it's like a lot of kind of unlearning and relearning, and just like the willingness to make a mistake and to look stupid and just to own it. Like sometimes you just have to hold that out. It's like, I screwed up, but I'm not going to quit. Like I'll keep going and I'll get better. And
did you find as an entrepreneur you were going in with like one focus, and then over time you're like, oh, actually, no, it's not just about this one thing?
Huge. That's like huge. And it's funny, like to even talk about sustainability, because I was like, I'm in energy. That's it. I generate, distribute, and sell. That's it. And our CTO, who's my cousin, who could tell you I'm very slow in a lot of ways. He was like, no, you have to do this. Like, I didn't get why we would have to invest in the key economy. Then when we're negotiating with the district and the subject of a school comes up, I mean, I was like, what is this? How many businesses am I in? This is insane. I can't do all this. But then, like, as you really start looking at the numbers and you start thinking from a broader perspective, and you remember, like, this is the kind of business you start for the long haul. If you want to exit in like 2 years, you wouldn't do what I'm doing unless you're just crazy, which probably am anyways. So yeah, I didn't have the kind of sustainable mindset. I didn't think it all the way through. And yeah.
What would be, are there like any key like learnings that you would, that are top of mind right now, or like fallacies about sustainability, beliefs you held that you let go about sustainability that, like for me, I think of the word sustainability and I think renewal. Like, is that the right way to think about it in connection to what you do?
Yeah, I could see why you think renewal. Like a lot of times we think like sustainable energy, renewable energy.
Yeah.
I think probably a big fallacy, and I know it's easy for me to say, talking from my daughter's iPad, I get it. There's minerals on the iPad, I'm aware. In Toronto, like I get it. But I think one fallacy is people think renewable energy like just falls from the sky.
Right.
And you know, you look at like a wind turbine, they don't actually have a very long lifespan, and they cannot be broken down.
Yeah.
As of now, I've been seeing at market, a wind turbine that can be broken down, and they're huge. People don't realize they're huge.
Yeah, there was a moment there. I can't remember what period of the decade it was. This last one or previous, where they were the same.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that everything has other implications, and that's one thing I really had to think through. And like doing that large environmental study, I mean, I started looking for a job.
Yeah.
Look, I'm like, this is like, I can't do this. Yeah. I just don't think I'm capable. I didn't think I was. So I mean, I think, especially if we're talking like, if there's a lot of Africans in the room, I think a lot of people do forget like solar is good, you know, but the cobalt, like it comes from somewhere. And a lot of times when I would go and I was like part of a working group with the European Union, or I get invited to speak at places, I'm terrified, but I just do it because I'm like, that's like there's capital in there. It's not a fiat currency, but there is a currency there.
Right.
So I go and like whenever I'll talk about that, and I'm like, you know, because I have to worry about how I dispose of these things. So I think about how I'm procuring these things and like where they come from. The minerals come from somewhere, and I'm not happy if they're still being mined by like kids my daughter's age. You know, and I think that could be a bit of a fallacy where we don't really like to think about that part of renewable. We just kind of think, oh, solar, it's great.
Yeah.
And another thing too with solar is it takes a lot of land. It takes a lot of
something I would have.
To a solar array, depending, like if you were to do a solar array for a place like in Uganda, like where we're developing, it's okay because these are communities that have never. This is like the one district in Uganda. If anyone's Ugandan, they know there's a lot of districts in Uganda. It's the one district that has no electricity. So even that affects the modeling. So it's this pretty small solar array, and then you can add on as you go. But if you were, say, to do a solar array like in New York or Toronto, I can't even tell you how much land you need to power like these apartments, these towers, and you end up kind of in the situation of should this land be used for agriculture or so like. I guess that's the thing with sustainability. It's what I find interesting, and it's actually why I'm done talking in 2 minutes, because I'd love to hear from everyone else. Because you realize, oh my, I need so many people to think all of these things through.
Right.
And whoever's ship it is, you're the captain. Like I remember one time our sociologist, people used to laugh that we have a sociologist, but our sociologist like called me boss. Because, you know, that's another unlearning. Like in Canada, the power distance is quite small. You can call your boss by their name.
Yeah.
You know?
Their first name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel like even if you saw Justin Trudeau and you called him Justin, I don't think it would be a huge thing. You call my president Yari. Yikes, you know, you got your excellencies. The power distance is way larger back home. So our sociologist called me boss. I'm not your boss. I'm not a sociologist. Like this is your ship. And you're the expert in your ship. And that's why I sought you out, and I'm so thankful you even were willing to like enter this like crazy journey with me. But I'm not gonna sit here and tell someone how to do what they don't do. That's why I asked you to help. And you realize you need the sociologist, you need the architect, you need the engineers, you need like so many things to really design something that's sustainable. And it's like any business plan, like it's a living document. You adjust as you go, you adjust as you go. I guess kind of the last thing before I get to hear from everybody else is, like, I think COVID is obviously, like, it's awful, you know? And it's a time when everybody has to re-examine, like, their business, their job, their way of life, their childcare, their marriage. They, you know, like everyone has to reevaluate everything. And in that, there's a lot of tragedy in this, but in it, there still is opportunity. Like we were talking about March, April, when grocery shopping was crazy and there was no toilet paper and everything was nuts, and a lot of people were using Instacart to have them to go deal with it and get their groceries. That obviously Instacart already exists, but suddenly that model was really, really relevant.
Yeah.
So relevant that now Uber will go to 7-Eleven and get you a Slurpee or whatever, you know? So you see that shift, and it's like all of us can do that. And it's like in your mind, it's kind of step away from, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. I feel like that all the time. And to realize like there's an opportunity here. And everyone has a way of looking at something that's valuable. You know, I never want to be in an echo chamber. One of my favorite things about Jackie is like, you look at things very differently than I do.
Right.
And sometimes you just need that kind of thinking out loud moment to kind of unlock something in your brain, or to pick up something someone said and you're like, you gotta go by, like,
Don't be afraid to have different people that are different from you in personality and thinking in your circle.
Yeah, because like you work in advertising.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of like, I'm done talking. What are the barriers?
Thank you. Yes, we have questions actually from
please.
great introduction you made.
Chatty patty.
It's good. Thank you, sis. We actually have some questions. Should I call the names, and I think our sisters can just come in, you know, and write directly. Great. Gladys, I saw you had your hand up. Do you want to come in? Gladys?
No,
Okay, great.
I was just applauding when she said that sociologists own their shit. So I thought it was really funny. So that's it.
Oh, sorry. What did I say that was funny? I didn't hear you.
That they called you boss, and that you were like, why? Because they own their shit. And I really relate to that, because we really have another way of thinking when we are in Europe. We don't have this top-down hierarchy thing going on, so it's quite disturbing when you have that kind of interaction with people. So that's just what I basically just noticed.
Oh, thanks. But it's just interesting because it's like, I mean, who am I to say which is right or wrong? It's just different. So it's like that unlearning for me, because like as a Canadian, it's like, what? What's your boss? Like, if anything, I feel like I'm indebted to you for dealing with me and joining this journey. So
beautiful. Thank you so much, Gladys. Thank you, Lucia. That's such a great point. We have Frederick. Perhaps I think the best is, if you have a question, just please come in, because today is really like Saturday, sitting on the couch with our sister Lucia.
I have a cup of water. It's like it's early morning.
Yes, if you have a question, please come in. Thank you. Unmute yourself, show your camera, don't be shy. And then ask
my hair. You can put your camera on. Don't worry. There's no product in it. No judgment. There's no judgment. I'm sweaty.
Frederick, come in.
Frederick. Did I lose everybody?
No, don't be shy, Frederick. We saw the two questions you asked. Please come in. If not, Joanna, come in, please. Just unmute yourself and show your camera, and you can just take the floor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Joanna,
sorry, I'm trying to.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi, I'm just trying to get my my video going because you can't see me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I took off the thing. I have this Nigerian fabric that I put over the thing so that the NSA can't watch me. Anyway, nice to meet you. I'm here in Connecticut, and what I'm interested in, I'm actually interested in making solar business in Nigeria, and so I have some Nigerian friends. I have some. I'm an American. I'm from California.
Oh,
It's like
beautiful.
America, but different. Yeah, but and so in our case, you know, I have many Nigerian friends, so I don't feel like I'm too far removed from the African community.
Yeah.
But in the case of business, because I'm, you know, I'm not a Nigerian. I'm going to be coming with my brothers and our other team members. You know, I'm just wondering if you have any advice for, you know, let's see here, how to approach the sensitivity of Nigerian people as I'm coming in. You know, I have a lot of experience with older, more powerful men than myself, and so you know that part I'm okay on that. But it's more like to prepare myself for their reactions, um, or if there are any suggestions that you have in terms of business and you know, reaching out to, like I heard you talking about, you know, you want to make sure that you are respecting you know, human rights, that you want to clear on who's doing the work, and you know, I want to make sure that I follow everything that I know needs to be in place, and that, you know, and then I go to meetings at the UN and hear people say this is unjust, and you know, and so that's a lot of things. I'm looking at how you are able to keep track of like the supply chain. I'll just say the supply chain of who's involved in your business, and then, you know, and then also any ideas, because I am white, I still am white, you know, any thoughts about that? And thank you for talking with us today, and thank you, Verlaine, for organizing this.
Oh, yeah, honestly, they all praise to Verlaine, really. Thanks for even taking time out of your morning. Like, thank you. I don't know, first, I mean, your teeth are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I have like a little.
She has a thing for teeth.
Yeah, I have an obsession with teeth. You can ask my daughter about it. Did you brush your teeth? I'm obsessed with teeth.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I think it's kind of funny because it's like, it's almost like we have opposite issues. Like, I wasn't used to a lot of powerful men. That was kind of my learning curve was steep with that. So that's good that you have that already. Cool.
It's important to know you have how many sisters?
Oh yeah, I have 5. Well, we're 5 girls. I have 4 sisters.
Yeah. Okay, that helps.
And yeah, so I think the big thing, from what I know of Nigerians, I was actually supposed to go to Nigeria last year, but I couldn't go with my daughter. And I think I had something else to do. But from what I know of Nigerians, they're like the most welcoming people ever.
Absolutely. I went to Nigeria a couple of years ago. I'm not so worried about Nigerians. I'm just, you know, I don't consider myself an outsider because I feel like I'm already friends with them. And so, you know, but just, you know,
I know what you mean. Like,
okay.
You're like, I can't think of a word.
I think it's important to always be conscious of your thoughts. Walking into any situation.
I can't hear you as much, darling, when you talk over there because you're farther away from the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's important to be conscious all the time, to be aware of walking into a new culture, even if you're familiar with it, and be aware of the thoughts and what you're interacting with, to ensure that maybe you're not walking in with any sort of like hidden or unconscious bias. It's like something I practice walking into any environment or any with any group of people. Even though, like, for example, I grew up around a lot of Asians, but I'm still someone walking into any situation with them, walking into any work environment with them, I'm aware that it doesn't mean that there might be hidden biases or anything. Like, I'm not saying that you have that. It's just something I'm always conscious of. Like, there's always something to be learned about in any situation that I'm walking into. So I guess that would be the one piece of advice that I'd give you. You're not going to know, like, you won't know until you're in it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Right.
I find that,
Right, yeah.
I find that is so the thing. And it's like, I have the same, like, you're white in Uganda, I'm white too. Like, it's funny, like, I don't know if anyone Ugandan is here, but like, the tribe I'm from is the Muganda, but I don't even look like a Muganda. So it's like, you don't sound like Uganda, you don't look Ganda. It's like, where are you really from? Even some of my extended family is like, where is she from? She doesn't look like us. So I have the exact same thing where I I go with Jackie's saying, because I would be like, well, I am Ugandan. Like, I'm the same. But then I still was like, but I was raised here, so my mind is a bit different. I think you'll know when you get there. I think, like, not to be corny, and like my momminess is gonna show, but I think if you go there and you have good intentions, you know what you're doing, you're obviously already respectful of the culture, you like the culture, you're immersed in it, like, you'll be fine. You'll just have to just see when you get there. And one thing on the energy tip, Nigeria is a lot easier to work in than Uganda.
I'll listen to that. Yeah. What about the supply chain question that I was trying to put together? You know, one of the reasons why I'm interested in doing this, I could do this in the U.S., but it's not as interesting to me. You know, what was I going to say? Oh, I totally lost my thought. The supply chain. I want to make sure that, you know, everybody who we're dealing with is upholding the standards, and you know, like, the main reason for me to be in this kind of work is because I care about the environment, and I want people to have access to energy to be able to grow and to, you know, to be the amazing people that they are. And so, you know, I'm clear that the farther away the task gets from me, the more risk there is of something, you know, questionable going on. And so, in your business experience, how have you been able to guarantee that you know, the right things are happening in terms of, like, where you're sourcing your goods, or, you know?
It's girl, that's a whole conversation. It is, I want to hear. I hear somebody working on Fresh Nigeria. I see comment, but it's like, it's trial and error. You know, there was a time when we were focused on solar water pumps, and it was this whole thing, like, we grow business, and you know, we did a couple, and it was great. You know, we would see, you know, people were growing way more produce, and they were selling more, and it was winning, and it was great. Like, we were filming videos, and then I kind of had a feeling about one of the guys we had hired to actually do the physical work, and then my suspicion was right, because another project came, which was much more expensive, and the guy totally, like, just stole. It was the biggest nightmare on earth. And I remember the client in Uganda was calling me, and like you're seeing, at a certain point, you're not in control of it. And I don't even know how to call the client because I'm not there. So I'm calling the guy who's doing it. I'm calling the guy who designed it. He's our CTO, and he's thorough. Like, but sometimes, you know, there's someone down. And
so would you say it's important to have good stewards, good stewards?
I
or
think
is that
like, you can do all you can, but then life is just kind of life. People are just people sometimes, and it's like, for me, what I did was, I was like, you know what, the solar water pump, like, I like the idea of it, it's necessary, but in that situation, I'm like, there's way too much that's so far out of my hands, and we just stopped doing that kind of business. So, you know, I think it's just like a trial and error. Sometimes you might see, like, sometimes to learn a lot, like, you have to go through some bad stuff sometimes. Like, I had to pay, I lost a lot of money. It was horrible. And in that situation, we just decided, we're not doing this. The yield's not enough for this stress. And then sometimes you can just start to kind of even, like, be more firm in your own judgment. You know, you can kind of, because I don't know, it's like, for me, I'm always like, oh my God, like, thank you for spending your morning with me. Like, I'm always on the really like thankful side. And sometimes you can kind of overlook some things, and like, you got to be a bit more scrutinizing, Lucia. And you kind of can see little things like, oh, you know, I did that, and you got to reverse engineer it. Like, there was this gap, now I know I got to fill this gap, or I'm not going to do this. And all.
Yes. Well, it's good. At this point, I feel I'm very critical, so loving, so much love, but very critical, and I'm, you know, I think this kind of project comes at the right time in my you know, personal capacity. But I love excuse me, I love to hear of, you know, what what has worked and what hasn't worked, and you know, I feel I have so many questions for you, but I don't want to monopolize the time.
But we could talk after. Like, I even like,
that would be great.
I'll ask for Len, and I can like give you my email, my WhatsApp. We can talk.
Excellent.
I can learn from you.
Yeah.
And even I know some other people in Nigeria who are in the space. Even some guys who I know some guys who would have some money for you too.
Okay, excellent. Yes. The you know, I consider myself a friend of Africa, and so it's, you know, it happened to be Nigeria. I have many friends there, and the, you know, the things are culminating there, but in my view, like, you know, I could be doing this anywhere, and it can expand. You know, I've seen the maps of Africa at night, you know, where the lights shine, and so, you know, I feel like this is something, and I've met other people who are working on the major solar projects, and so, you know, Nigeria is like Uganda, is like, it's like Algeria. You know, I want everybody to have access to what they need, and so I'm looking to learn from every source.
Good. No, honestly, I'd love to keep talking with you after, because I mean, you know, you probably have a lot to teach me, and I agree with you where it's like, we're all humans. Like, you want everyone to have it, and Lord knows there's a lot of need for us back home. So
yeah,
we'll talk, girl.
Excellent. Thank you so much. High five.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I think Frederick was wanted to come in. Frederick, I saw you turn on your video, and then Sipo.
I love that. I have a sticker on my computer.
Frederick, come in. I think there's a problem with your mic. I see your mic is on, but there's no sound coming. Sorry. Do you want to try to fix it? Or can you hear?
What's wrong?
Okay, I think the mic of Frederick doesn't seem to be working, so we'll leave him a bit of time to come back. Sipo?
Hi everyone. I had my mic on, but my allergies are acting up, so I took it off. Can you hear me? I think you can hear me.
I can hear you perfectly. I love your accent.
I'm South African, so that's a South African accent you're hearing.
Oh, I know it. I love South Africa. I took my daughter there with me like 2 years ago. Love. So I heard your accent. I'm like, oh, it's essay in the house.
I was just commenting on what Joanna was saying. I think doing business in a country that you're not from, whether you're white or from a different continent, is just difficult. Because I'm doing a project in Nigeria. It's just starting with a few friends. And I feel like there are often ways that you want to do things, and then I often get feedback, oh, it's not done like that in this country. You know, we do things differently. And it's really about learning. I'm from an economic background, so I have theories and I have my models in my head, and what is like regulations that I'd like to follow, or just practices and principles, right? And just I've realized that in some spaces, I don't know, you give a little to get a little sometimes, and you have to be very adaptable, and that doesn't mean be
I
pushed.
could just jump in the screen.
I'm not saying do things that are like that are questionable and break laws, but sometimes let me use an example. Sometimes a customer or a service provider will respond a bit more to a man than to a woman, and you guys really want that. It's against your feminist ideals, but you really want that service, so you'll send in your male partner. You know, you maybe you've died inside a little bit, but you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. So that's all I wanted to say. To what Joanna was saying, you almost have to really trust your partner's characters, who they are, the people who are from that place, that they would never put you in a situation that is unethical or that could land you even legally in trouble.
That's it. I so agree. It's like something really small, like, you know, being here in Canada where we have in Toronto the subway or the bus, or, like, it's never a thing to like ask someone for transport. Whereas back home,
yes.
thing. It's like, I need transport.
Exactly.
And to me, I'm like, just because I'm Canadian doesn't mean I'm paying for. And you think, oh my God, is this a bribe? But it's like, no, that's just how it works here. But then you have to have someone who knows, okay, how much does this transport cost? Because they just asked me for 5 million new shillings. Yeah. So, and I so agree with you. Or even like a man, or like there's some people who kind of early on, kind of like a judgment thing where you can be wrong, but you got to kind of go with your gut. There's sometimes you can take a meeting and you can see, yeah, this person is not into me. They don't want to hear it from me. So maybe it's a man, you know, I don't know what the reason is, but there's some times where it's like, you know, hey, this is your guy. You got to deal with this person. And someone else, like our engineer, sometimes he's literally a genius, our CTO, he's my cousin. But sometimes he's so cerebral that non-experts can't really get with it. So in a situation like that, it's like, Lucy, you deal with this person. So sometimes that's how we do it. It's like, yeah, deal with that person. And I get it, where you can kind of die inside if you look at it through the lens, like, oh, that person would prefer a man over me. And sometimes that's the truth. But like you said, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Sit here on my like feminist high horse and not do what I said I'd do to the community, do for the communities, and or do I? It's not illegal, and maybe it's not that big of a deal that they don't want to talk to me, and I can still get where I want to go. I totally get what you're saying. Hello? Are you guys still there? Am I talking too much? Where'd everyone go?
No, we're here.
Oh,
okay. We're all enjoying the talk. I think Sifo, yeah, thank you so much, Sis. I think your mic was back to muted, but we have Gladys from Paris who's also online for a quick discussion. Thank you. Go ahead.
All of your countries. I love Paris. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Gladys.
Hi, bonjour. Yes, that's a real question this time. You said something really important when you started the talk. You said that energy was the precursor of development, and that's absolutely true, because we're having all those conversations about digitalization and also often, but you're right. I mean, without any power, all of this cannot happen. So I wanted to ask you if you think that we dedicate enough time to this conversation, and if not, how can we contribute to sparking conversation about this, which is the root actually cause, because when you don't have electricity, in fact, you're right, you can't do anything. So thank you.
I'm so happy I got to see your face. I love it. I don't know. It's kind of hard because I guess because I work in energy, like I'm in energy conversations, but I know one thing I often say, like if I'm at like a conference or something, and you'll see like on the schedule, you know, noon it's energy, 1 it's water, 3, I'm like, why aren't we talking to each other? Why are we, you know, you look and it seems to me, I guess, because I'm not from energy, I'm an outsider, I look at it, I'm like, well, if all of us in the room know the same thing, that can't really solve the problem. Like, we need somebody in forestry, we need some economists in here, we need some people in healthcare in here, because if you don't have power, well, your hospital, you can't store vaccines, you can't run a ventilator, these things can't work. But I find that people kind of stay in their groups, which I think is not the most useful thing. So that would kind of be my push. I'm always like kind of the brat at the conference who's like, we get some other people together. I think we definitely need more interdisciplinary conversations. And I think when it comes to electricity, it's boring. Like, it's not sexy. AI is sexy. It's, you know, all these other things are just more interesting. And it's like everyone kind of gets, yeah, hospitals, yeah, schools. People get it. Like, okay, I want my kid to learn, I need a doctor. But neither of them can work without electricity. Yeah. And I don't know how we can make it, I don't know how you can make it more interesting, or I don't know. Maybe we get like a hashtag or something, fly. I don't know, I call Kim Kardashian. I don't know. Because it's so, I think it's almost too basic that, I don't know, I'm with you. And I hear, and I'm always like, you hear just these brilliant ideas. And I'm like, it truly is brilliant. But when that power goes out for the 5th time today, like I was in Guinea last year in Conakry. We're in like the nicest hotel in Conakry. It was beautiful. It's across the street from Islam. And I remember my first day there, I started counting how many times the power went out. I literally counted. It was like over 20 times in one day. And this is the best hotel, and they had a generator, so you'd see a lag where you're like in the shower and you're like, and I remember the morning our meeting started, I said, well, how appropriate to have this meeting when there's no electricity here. Yeah. Or even once I spoke at the African Union in Addis, and that day the power went out. So you're like, well, but I don't know, I think the answer is like interdisciplinary conversations and just more people in a conversation. Like, I guess possibly because I'm not a subject matter expert and I'm not a trained like engineer or something, I approach it as like an end user. I approach the whole thing as like a mother, as a friend, as a sister, as, you know, someone who
wears many hats.
You know what I mean? Like just a regular person. So I think if people could maybe look at things in that way, like, yeah, I don't know who cares about megawatts. Like, who cares? People care about like comfort, their life. And I think sometimes we find subject matter experts, and God bless them, because I would not work if I didn't have them working with me. But it can become too technical. And it's like, no, guys, like those popsicles I just bought my daughter, they're gonna melt if the power goes out. It's that simple.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I totally agree with you with the idea that we usually work in silos and it doesn't serve the purpose or the greater good for everybody. But yeah, definitely there is something to be done here. And I agree with you with the fact that we have to be maybe more, go back to basics, like, you know, it's about everyday's life and people's, you know, daily lives. So if we are trying to make policies or we're trying to build something, this should be actually our purpose or goal, to actually solve people's problems, their everyday life problems, and not just an idea of that as, you know, to gather and, you know, yeah.
I agree. And one last thing, I think it's like having conversations with people who, you know, we might not be like, we're not Elon Musk. Like, we don't have this huge resume. I didn't make PayPal, and you know, but we're trying. Like, we're the ones who are in the fields. We're the ones who actually go through all these regulatory hoops. Like, you know, people like all of us in the room actually have a lot more to contribute than a lot of. It's like you need everybody. So I don't want to say that as though we have more to contribute, but you know, I used to have a real chip on my shoulder, and I'd be invited somewhere, and I would think it was a scam. Like, I would Google people's email address, and I'm like, no, this must be a fake you. I swear, because I'm like, well, I haven't done this. I haven't done all this great stuff. Why are they calling me? And then it was really my brother who really, I guess, like really, really empowered me more than probably anyone else was my brother. And he would say, he's like, just in the process of doing something as you're working, you've seen things that people who write the policy or people who like pontificate and postulate about things, they haven't. So it's like all of us, even just having an idea of doing something in Nigeria, or there was someone, or you know, my sister from South Africa, beautiful accent, who has the project in Nigeria. Like, she's got a lot more knowledge than she might know, more than the energy minister. And it's like, I just wish in a way back home, like we could get away from this large power distance where someone might not want to listen to us. Because I've been in meetings. I was in Belgium in one meeting, and literally these women were complaining. They're like, why is she speaking? Why? Like, they were mad that I was saying anything. And I'm like, but I have something to contribute to. Like, you know, or I've been in a situation where I literally got heckled on stage one day. I don't know where it was. I got heckled as talking about environmental impact assessments, where the moderator of the conversation was saying how they're so difficult and no one knows how to do it. And I'm like, well, I do. Like, isn't that why you asked me to talk? He's like, yeah, well, you're Canadian. Oh, my Kardashian now? Like, what does that mean? Like, I thought you asked me to be here because there's something I knew. Like, I know how to do what you said no one knows how to do. So I find, like, we need to get away from that. Like, even just the idea of, like, no, you don't have a PhD, you don't have a master's, you're not a minister, what do you know? Everyone knows something, you know? If we can get away from that and have more conversations with other people who are not like us, we can get somewhere, I think.
Yes, yeah, sorry, I have to come in because this was just so powerful. I was behind my screen and I saw Jackie was like, I was like, but I think, oh?
It's true for life in general, what she's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, even having this talk is what it is about. And I like what you said, Lucia, and I like also the questions that our sister Gladys brought in, you know, that led to this conversation is, you know, if you don't look like, or if you don't have what they call the credentials to be in certain rooms or, you know, belong, then you don't have your place there. And I love what you said about, you know, we all have something to bring, and who are they, or who, you know, who is anyone to deny you this space to share the person that you are, the work that you're driving, and the change you're actually building. Because you're actually building change. I just want to share the question from our brother Frederick. For him, he's been trying to ask his question, and then he doesn't. It seems that it's not working. So I'm gonna ask him for him. He sent it to me via the chat. Okay. Let me look at it.
Can you?
Frederick is here. Good. Go ahead. You made it.
At last, eh?
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm usually the only man in this discussion each and every time. Eh?
Good, gender balance.
Frederick, you need to bring your brothers, huh? Because we need to work together so they come to the talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, the only part I usually, first thing I really want to appreciate, at least to see women coming together, especially in this line of renewable energy, which is a really good thing actually. My biggest question now comes in and I really sent it, but I think I can bring it back again to you. What are kind of barriers which are coming for the retention and advancement for the woman when it comes to the renewable energy sector.
What do you mean? What barriers in terms of what? Could you be like a little more specific?
Yeah, more specific, because in terms of one, there is gender when you're talking of a woman.
Yes.
And two, there is when you're talking of the country policies.
Yes.
Like when you mention upon you from Uganda, and me for me myself, I'm from Kenya.
I knew you were from East Africa. I heard that accent. Okay.
Yeah, so when you find that kind of an aspect, there's this kind of, you want to get like example like a solar.
Yes.
But when you find the cost to, let's say, to make these solars, like in Kenya, you find the cost is going to be very high than importing.
Yes.
So when I was hearing my sister Joanna Mayers, when she was mentioning, I am from this country and I want to do it in Nigeria, you see, there is a balance. If you are really looking at now to get it, let's say from Canada, you can find even the cost is cheaper. But when you are going to implement it in Africa, like Kenya, the cost is going to be expensive. Even now, getting that kind of a market is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know how does it work, because I'm seeing this one to be a very big a barrier when it comes to the growth of the woman in this kind of a sector when it comes to the renewable energy, and you want to really grow up and excel in this kind of a business. And that's why when you find most of the people, they will not look upon this one as a venture than having it, let's say somebody has a good platform for this energy business, but he decides to get it from outside, not from his original country.
I see what you mean. You mean like procuring like the panels themselves, or so just really like the technical equipment?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because that's one where it's like a long-term kind of play, because it would be great if we were producing these things back home and we had the systems to like trade with each other. It's like, it's a long-term play. We'll get there. That would, I don't know, it's a hard question for me to answer, because like in an ideal world, like we would be making these things in Kampala. We'd be making these, but I know in Kenya, you guys do. Schneider does make stuff in Nairobi. It's obviously not a French company, it's not Kenyan, but I know they do produce stuff there.
In quotes.
Pardon me?
Yeah, okay. When you mention produce, it's the only thing they import. They only can make a business here.
Yeah, like sorry, when I mentioned like manufacturing, we're talking about importing. Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yep. The only part I'm looking upon is what China does when it comes to this kind of business. They usually come and then invest in this country by, let's say, opening their own company.
Yes.
But they import, because it's now becoming like a chain. It's an importation, and then sell to Kenyans.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. It's tough, but like I said, even in this new COVID situation we're in, I think that there's a lot of room for that to change. I think unfairly to just to Chinese people, the supply chain has been compromised. I think a lot of countries and a lot of companies are trying to think, okay, how can we make things domestically? Because this is the first time we're really seeing like a real snag in that supply chain. So I think what you're saying is how it is, but I think now as everybody starts to reimagine the economy and their own life and production, manufacture. There's a world where, you know, we could start even talking amongst ourselves, and if we have the ability, talking to governments and trying to find ways to start manufacturing things at home. I think that the need for that has been clear. It's very, very, very clear now, and it's possible. So, I mean, I think like that would be the best thing long term, to not always have to import from so far, because that creates a whole other host of situations. So I think we're in that sense, it's a pretty good time in history where we could see, like, I think that's the big opportunity for Africa right now, to really beef up its manufacturing. And I think we have a lot of, I don't know if you call them elites, who used to be able to run to other parts of the world to go for treatment at hospitals. I think now we
Exactly.
we're like, maybe we should actually look after our hospitals here. So can't come anymore. Like,
You know, okay, I don't know, because you really mentioned that you are from the region from Uganda.
yes.
Now, how do you go about, because I've also seen this kind of, they usually produce some of the stuff like the renewable energy and stuff in their country, but when you are doing upon the issues of where was it made, you now venture into having, let's say, the bosses in quotes from another country. So it's sort of like it's made in, let's say, China, made in UK, but the originality for it was made in Africa. So whereby you find it's sort of like a stereotype, somebody will not buy something that is made in Kenya, putting into notion that it is fake. But when it is being made in another country, it is okay. So how do you go about it on your own side? How do you venture it? Because,
you know, it's, I mean, what you're saying, that is a real thing. We definitely have that issue back home, where for, you know, I mean, there are historical reasons why that we do value things that are from abroad. But I mean, I guess for myself as a developer, to just be honest, the numbers have to make sense. So it's like, the electricity, like the tariff is already so low. It's already, like, this isn't a business I'm in to become rich, you know? So already the margins are so slim. So price kind of dictates what you procure. You, of course, are then bound by the environmental aspect of, you know, how do you this battery, what's the life cycle cost, but really price dictates, and buy stuff from China.
okay.
And it's like, I mean, as much as we do, as much as we can have someone weld together at home, we do. That's really my goal, is to stimulate the economy, get money moving, get people having jobs. But there's sometimes you just look at your spreadsheet and you're like, okay, well, this equipment costs this much from there, but that really dictates, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had like a. She's like, okay. He's like, oh my brother. You know, but the thing is, I think, Patrick, side note, I was born in Kenya, so, you know, kind of Kenyan too. But I think we have an opportunity. I really, really, really do. And I spent a lot of my time, like, you know, COVID is so messed up. It's just, may everyone rest in peace who's passed away. I lost my parents when I was young. Like, I get it. May everyone rest in peace. And, you know, it's awful, it's inconvenient, but there is still opportunity. And I think that we can really, like, I think if people get information and start really working together, we can start manufacturing things at home. Like you're saying, it just makes sense. You know, it really, really does. And I think everyone has a role to play. Like, you see a lot of times people talk a big talk about, you know, buy local, buy local. And you look and you're like, that's pretty local what you're using. Like, are you doing it yourself? So I think it'll take time.
Very true. Very true. let's hope for the best.
Right? Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And we'll do our job. Honestly, it's like there's all we can do is all of us just do our best. What comes of it will come of it. And hopefully we can do our best. And, you know, my kid is bored, but somewhere it's going in her mental filing cabinet, what she hears, and hopefully she can do her best and we can help each other. And like, it sounds so corny. I sound like such a mommy, but okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Freddy's like, I'm going to party, bye.
Thank you so much. We have Fadimata. Fadimata, do you want to come in?
Hi.
Sure. Hi, Lucia. Unfortunately, I won't be able to put my camera on because of my internet here. I'm calling from Kigali, and yeah. So
from all these countries. Yes. Okay.
I'm in Rwanda, but I'm not Rwandese. Unfortunately, I'm from West Africa. I'm from Mali. I don't know if you know Mali.
Of course.
Yes. So thank you. Thanks for talking to us, and I was really inspired. And I really admire how much you speak about your daughter and all the challenges. So thanks for bringing her into the picture, because I know how hard it is to be a mom and trying to do many things at the same time. So thanks for talking about that. I guess again, another thing that is courageous is for you trying to do business away from Uganda. I really admire that, because I know how hard it is to manage, even to get to trust someone and try to do anything away from home in the African context. It's very challenging. Coming back to this subject, I really find it as a missed opportunity, because we are a continent which has renewable energy and opportunities throughout the year, but challenges are around the lack of skills, like we don't have enough trained people, the lack of policies or opportunities. So I was wondering if, as you are starting your adventure in Uganda, if you have gotten any governmental support or any support from I don't know, any international or NGOs, because or UN agencies, because usually there is a push for international or bilateral organizations to invest in renewable energy. But then the challenge is within the country and the policies, it doesn't follow. And as my brother Frederick said, the cost is so prohibitive that it's not sustainable for someone to start investing despite the demand and despite all the opportunities that we have in our countries. So thank you very much, and thanks for talking to us, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Well, thank you for listening, and for yeah, you can see mommy is probably my top, like my first layer of my identity is actually being a mother. Even when I was in New York, Berlin, had breakfast with my daughter. But you know, it's a very interesting conversation, because because I get invited to help people with policy a lot. Even our main regulator, who sets the tariff in Uganda, it's called ERA, the Electricity Regulatory Authority. They've asked our group for advice on changing their policies, and we're like, well, yeah, because we have a lot of recommendations, so we did it. Then they asked again, like last week, to be part of this working group with them. And like, that's positive. And like, you know, I've been in a group with EU and, you know, a couple of those letters, you know, and yet you still see it's like, so can I have some money? Can I have some money? Like, I need money too. Like, I don't know if you got what you wanted. You got like a woman to come and check off a bunch of things on your list.
Yeah. Do you feel used at times?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes, yeah, to be very honest, sometimes. And it's a fine line, because there's days when that's a currency. You know, you can see, and there's some things I'll do because I'm like, you know, I don't have all this money and I don't have this huge track record, and the team, everyone's rock star, but, you know, we don't have this track record. So I would see going and speaking somewhere as a form of currency, because I'm like, well, this, you know, I'm thankful someone asked me, and these people are so thorough, like it'll add to our credibility and it's worth it. But then there's sometimes you look and you're like, can I have money? Like, it can be frustrating. And to answer your question, no, we don't have any money from any big intergovernmental organizations or from our government or anything. And you kind of have to look at some things from a long haul perspective, where it's like, you know, maybe I'll just pay my dues and get to know more people, and so you tell yourself to sleep at night, I guess. But it's kind of crazy. We did get a grant from Tony Alumalu Foundation, and from Tony Alumalu Foundation, and he's like personally a wonderful, wonderful man. I love the whole initiative. But on an administration note, you know that Jay-Z line where he's like, that might offend my political connects. But the truth is, on an administrative note, the money had to come through his bank. Fine. It took 6 months to open an account with his bank. Frustrating, but we open it, and it's been about 2 years, and I've never been able to withdraw the money. I've probably spent more than the grant. The grant was like $5,000. I spent more in lawyer fees. So that's frustrating. But you know, you're like, I gotta charge it to the game. That's learning. That's operating a business in a new place. Charge it to the game. But so I like to say, yeah, no, there's lots of money, and I sit in a lot of boardrooms, and I hear M's and B's. I hear these wonderful amounts of money. I've yet to touch any myself. Maybe God is sending some. I don't know. But it's interesting, because you hear, I think it was, I don't know if it was Black Rhino. I believe it was called, someone correct me if I'm wrong, where they pulled out of sub-Saharan Africa recently, saying there's no projects. Mm-hmm. Tons of projects. What do you mean? So it's like, sometimes even like me myself, I'm like, maybe there's something I'm not looking at, because there's somewhere in this labyrinth that I'm lost. Because they're saying there's no projects, but then they're saying there's money, but then there's, I know tons of people with projects, but then they're like, yeah, but it's not enough money. But then it's like, oh, but then for this micro situation, it's too much money. And you're like doing this hokey pokey all day. You're like, I don't know how to fit your criteria. And so you know, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and I find myself like delving into other situations where I'm like, you know, there are a lot of people in the world who have money. So I'm like, maybe, you know, we can look at some entertainers, or I don't know. I don't even know if I've made this a therapy answer, or if I answered your question. I don't know if I did.
Express some like legit frustrations.
Yeah, because theoretically there's a lot of money.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's not easy, but it shows all your dedication and the passion about it. So I guess keep doing the good job you are doing, and you keep inspiring and keep talking and speaking about it, because definitely we really need youth to come into this sector. This is the future of Africa. And as you said earlier, there is no way we can ask, mainly as we keep advancing, there is no way we can have access to health, sustainable access to education. And COVID-19 is a very good lesson for the whole world. Now the whole world is asking all schools to go online. And we know that in Africa, even schools in towns, in capital cities don't have access to electricity, as you said. And now we are asking schools in remote areas to go online, or to listen to the TV, or to listen to the radio. And there is no electricity, there is nothing. So I think this is really, the demand is there, as I said. What is lacking is the networking, the money, and I guess money will come. But what's important is also for us to get ready, to prepare the skill set, and to position women into this sector, because you will see in many countries, the few people who are venturing into it, it's a male-dominated area. So we need women like you to raise the voice and to start championing and to start speaking about it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And yeah, you're right about women. And it's like, I mean, people don't like talking about clean cooking. I mean, you think people don't like talking about electricity? You think people hate clean cooking. You'll just see someone's eyes glaze right over. But the truth is, that's a real problem. You know, that's why, you know, it's deforestation. And it's women who cook. So these are the women who are in front of, you know, they're the ones bent over, kneeling in front of the cooks, the charcoal. They're the ones who are, you know, having all the respiratory ailments. And it's interesting, like with COVID, everyone's like cares about respiratory, but it's like these women been having respiratory issues. Like, can we kind of extend the care for that too? And it's women who are the ones who are tasked with this. They're the ones who suffer from the lack of infrastructure. They're the ones who gather the firewood. They're the ones. So it's like, if we really want to design systems that will be applicable to the local context, which will make them sustainable, how can you not have women talking? Like, they're the ones who know, you know? I just happen to be a chatterbox, but I mean, there's so much that everybody, like, you can talk about Mali, we can hear about South Africa, all of us, everyone has so much. And like, without the real people talking about the real life applications, the real life uses, the real life desires, we can't design systems that can be sustainable. Because if I roll up there in my Canadian high horse and do this, do that, I can't design something sustainable if I don't know what it is really, really trying to do.
On this powerful note, Lucia, it's, you know, this moment of saying goodbye is always the most difficult one. And I'm always dreading. Because I literally even have a clock, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, because it's 10 to 11, and I'm like, no, but then 11 comes, I'm like, no, it's not the right time. And then I'm looking and I'm like, all right, it's 15, no, it's not the right time. It's never the right time, because, you know, particularly when you get together with sisters like you who share their experiences of not only empowerment, because I think it goes beyond that, but really of going, you know, beyond and above all the obstacles, you know, you mentioned them, and maybe the external ones of people not finding you good enough. Technically, it's that, you know, having people who, and institutions, organizations who have a set picture, you know, that a guy, an entrepreneur, is a guy, a white guy with a hoodie, Mark Zuckerberg, going around and, you know, with his little iPad and, you know, making change. And really it's not. Entrepreneurs are young women or women across the board, across, you know, across shades also. You know, when you look at what you're doing, this is what entrepreneurship is. It's about the hustle. It's about being a young woman with a vision. And, you know, again, I want to appreciate our young men on the talk today. I'm not, you know,
gender balance.
we gotta say we have it a bit harder, so that's why the Be Powerfully talk is about. But you know, it's young women like you who have the vision and know there's a problem and try to find the solution to that. I just want to do a quick recap and leave you the last words of encouragement and of vision and, you know, and of power for all our sisters here. I take notes, of course. I took a good notes of what you shared, and I know our sisters on the talk did too, because I saw lots of tweets and lots of exchanges. So while you were talking, but just to do a quick recap, I love what you said about, you know, you're never ready. You're never ready about being an entrepreneur. You jump into it, you know, you roll up your sleeves and you listen, you know, and that's the second point you shared, which is very important. You learn as you go. You listen to the people who are around you. You know, you can't build, it's very difficult. There's a saying, it came, you know, we all know that, I think, as Africans, if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. You know, it's learning as you go. The third point, which was really powerful, is really honoring who you are, you know, your voice and, and your dreams, and most importantly, where you come from, you know. And I think, Lucia, it speaks volume that you have a strong commitment of giving back. You know, you mentioned being Canadian, and, you know, you could have left it at that, just being in Canada, living your best life, and, you know, and not think about it. But you still had something inside that said, I want to go back, and you built on that. You built on your family, on your community, and God bless your parents, because, you know, you said that they're not here today, but they are your ancestors, and I'm sure they're proud of you where they are. I'm gonna start crying here.
I'm like, you're gonna make
It's powerful. It's really powerful. You know, you brought it back home, and it's powerful. And the last point, perhaps, is on the ecosystem. You know, you shared a lot about the supply value and how can we build better, you know, sustainable. So my sister, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who was here today, and really leave you the last word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, my last word. Naomi, come say hi. Everybody's here. I keep talking about her. She could as well come through. Come and say hi. Just say hi, that's it, and say bye. They can't see you. Scoot, scoot, scoot. Okay.
Hi, you're so pretty.
She's like, oh my God, mommy. No, honestly, I think, like, Verlaine, I saw an email about how there's going to be like a place for all of us to exchange now. Like, I saw it's like the next level of Zahara Stream, and I'd love that, because I think you know, even when someone asks you a tough question, like, you could see Frederick, I was like, can you be more specific, because that's a real tough question, and I think you need that. Like, iron sharpens iron. I think that's the expression. Yeah, and I'm just want to really thank you, Verlaine, and thank all of you guys for giving, you know, some time to this conversation on a beautiful Saturday morning. And I just look forward to being part of Zahara's Dream. I have some jackets, and I thought it was really cool for you to see, like, the truth of Zahara's Dream, that this is, like, you know, a sister of mine, Jackie, who is always there for me and has lent me, not a jacket, but literally like a jacket, you know? And that, I don't know, we're just all in this together. I look forward to connecting more. If anybody is feeling bad and thinks they made a mistake, just call me. I'll tell you 100 I've made. And you'll feel better about yourself. And yeah, I don't know if there's somewhere I can give, like, my phone number, my email. You guys, like, call me anytime. I'm always, like, a WhatsApp away. And I look forward to the community space to share. And all, you know, thanks to Verlaine today.
Yes, Verlaine, thank you.
Sisters, we're together. This is the village. Perhaps we can ask our sisters online if they want to mute, share the camera so we can see your beautiful faces. And then don't be shy. Sifo, I know you